This is KLBK's Ag Journal, sponsored by Wiley Implement and Spray Center.
1 year ago, the Smokehouse Creek fire raged in the Texas Panhandle. Approximately 1.2 million acres were burned, and 900,000 of those acres were from Roberts and Hemp Hill counties. Nearly 15,000 cattle and 53 homes were lost. Despite the heartbreaking losses, the community has persevered, but the locals will never forget this disaster.
When I saw this hideous scene with all these dead cattle, I just fell to my knees and I just wept. It was so overwhelming.
The day after the Panhandle fires, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension agent Andy Holloway started getting texts, calls, and emails about the aftermath.
So my first stop was out about 12 miles east of town to a local rancher, a young rancher, and sure enough, they had lost over 700 mother cows, almost their entire herd.
And most of those mother cows were expected to have their calves within the next 30 days.
That was a hard thing to calculate economically because, you had the cow that you lost, but you also had their future calf. And so we valued them all as bred cows.
Dee Jones, a risk management economist, says each head of cow was valued between $2,000 to $3,000. But on top of that, ranchers would have to spend $50 to dispose of each cow lost. After the fires, cows that survived continued to have respiratory issues, and many just couldn't rebreed.
There were cows that aborted calves because of the stress and the lack of air quality and so forth, lack of nutrition.
Ranchers had to take their surviving cattle and move them to other parts of Texas or Kansas or New Mexico and pay some kind of pasture rental fee to feed their cattle until they could get them back on their local land.
What most people don't know is that the loss of cattle only made up 30% of the total damage.
The majority of the economic loss came from infrastructure losses. Over 70% or so was in fencing and barns and corrals and those type of losses.
Before the fires could even be put out, Jones and her team were able to estimate how much this disaster would all cost.
The pasture recovery cost, that was about $21 million. Emergency feed was $5 million. The fencing and infrastructure was $68.7 million. The cattle losses were about $28 million. And then the wildfire losses were $875,000. So all of that together came up with that about $123.5 million in losses.
Holloway worked with 15 individuals to organize task force committees, raising millions of dollars for each of the ranches and families affected. But to this day, recovery efforts continue in Roberts and Hemp Hill counties.
We're working to do mitigation, preparedness, to hopefully do all that we can to help prevent something like that from ever happening in the future.
Wildfire preparedness continues to be at the forefront of everyone's mind as we enter the calving season once again. Andy Holloway will even focus on wildfire prevention at the Hemp Hill County Beef Conference in April. The ranchers and the families affected to continue to appreciate all the support they received as they move past this tragedy. Now here's Jacob with your Ag Journal weather.